Some things cannot be explained. The archive only records them. It recorded the third-floor security camera at 3:47 a.m. on October 19th. Case file number 115. The Crescent Hotel, Eureka Springs, Arkansas. It recorded the corridor temperature collapsing from 68 degrees to 31 degrees in 11 seconds. It recorded room 218's door swinging open without a hand upon it. And it recorded a sound the night auditor later swore was a woman humming backward through a throat full of limestone water. The motion sensors fired in sequence, one, then the next, as if something unseen was walking toward the camera with terrible patience. The fluorescent lights dimmed to the color of old bone, and a voice, feminine and clinical and centuries patient, exhaled one word into the empty corridor: stay. They call it America's most haunted hotel. They say the walls remember. They do not say what the walls are waiting for. The archive heard her whisper one more word. It was not stay, it was a name. It might have been yours. Do you want to know what it was? Viewer discretion is advised. Maya heard the singing at 2:15 a.m. She was alone at the front desk, the lobby stretching around her like a held breath. The chandeliers were dimmed. The grandfather clock had stopped at 3:47. It always stopped at 3:47, no matter how many times they reset it. She did not believe in ghosts. She believed in anatomy and chemistry and the measurable world. The singing changed that. It rose from beneath the floor, soft, rhythmic, female, ancient. A lullaby her grandmother had hummed when Maya was small, except the melody was inverted. The notes ran backward, transforming something tender into something that belonged to the dark. It was not coming from the basement. It was coming from inside the walls. She followed it. The basement door was locked. The tour guides kept it that way. But when Maya pressed her palm against the wood, she did not know why she did this. The lock clicked open with a sound like a knuckle snapping back into place. She should have stopped. She did not. The stairs descended into a darkness that swallowed her flashlight. The air thickened, cold, damp, reeking of formaldehyde and rust and something sweetly rotten. The walls were wet. Not with condensation, with something thicker, something that had been there since 1939 and had never fully dried. The singing sharpened. Words formed from the inverted melody, spoken in a voice that was not quite human. Norman Baker found the door. Now he needs a nurse to open it. Her foot touched concrete. The flashlight flickered. And in that half-second of absolute blackness, she saw her. A woman in a white nurse's uniform from the 1930s, standing at the end of the corridor, her back to Maya, her neck bent at an angle that suggested the spine had been snapped and poorly reset. The woman's fingers were moving, twitching, counting something invisible. The light steadied. The corridor was empty, but the singing continued. Closer now, from directly behind her. Stay, the voice whispered. Stay with us. The walls have been so empty since they sealed the door. Maya turned. The door at the top of the stairs was gone. The archive does not explain. It only records. It recorded Maya's heartbeat at 2:17 a.m., 187 beats per minute. It recorded the basement air temperature falling to 34 degrees. It recorded the sound of a metal gurney rolling across bare concrete, though the basement held no gurney that night. And then the recording ended. The camera at the top of the basement stairs captured nothing else. No movement. No return. just the door swinging shut with terrible finality and the lock clicking back into place. Maya's body was found at 5:30 a.m. by the morning shift, sitting upright in the lobby chair behind the front desk, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes open and fixed on the ceiling. She was alive. Her lips moved soundlessly, forming the same words over and over, words the paramedics could not read. One of the paramedics, a veteran of 22 years, refused to enter the hotel. He stood in the parking lot, pale as milk, trembling in the October cold. "I won't go in there," he said. "My grandmother worked for Baker." 1938. She was one of his nurses. She went into that basement and never came out the same. She used to hum at night, this terrible song like a lullaby played backward. My mother said she hummed it until the day she died. And on her deathbed, she sat up, looked at the corner of the room, and said, "He's still waiting. He's been waiting so long for someone who would come back." No one asked him to explain. They should have. The history of the Crescent Hotel is not what the tour guides tell you. Yes, Norman Baker bought the hotel in 1937. Yes, he claimed to have found a cure for cancer. Yes, he filled the halls with nurses in white and promised desperate patients they would leave healed. But the archive has preserved documents the tourism board will not show you. Norman Baker did not believe cancer was a disease. He believed it was a possession, a spiritual attachment that could be transferred from the patient into another living vessel. A vessel of flesh and blood and breath. A vessel that could be emptied and refilled. He believed his nurses were the vessels. They signed contracts they did not understand. They lived in the hotel, ate in the hotel, slept on the third floor above his surgical theater. And one by one, according to the archive's records, they began to change. Their hair whitened. Their eyes dulled. They stopped writing letters home. They began humming the same inverted lullaby in the hallways at night. And then, one by one, they vanished. The official records list no deaths, no bodies, no investigations. But the archive found a county ledger from 1939, buried in a courthouse basement in Carroll County. 3 nurses transferred to the sub-basement ward. No further entries. The sub-basement did not exist on any floor plan. Norman Baker's true surgical theater was never located. Until Maya opened the locked door. Daniel Carver arrived at Washington Regional Medical Center at noon. He found his fiancée restrained to a bed, her body rigid as rigor mortis, her lips still moving. The doctors called it catatonia, a psychotic break triggered by stress, exhaustion, perhaps an underlying condition. Daniel knew better. He had seen the security footage before it was erased. He had watched Maya descend those stairs and never return. He had heard the singing on the audio feed, faint, inverted, curling through the recording like smoke through a keyhole. And he had seen something follow her back up. Something the camera could not quite render. Something that wore her shadow like a coat. By evening, the hospital staff began noticing changes in Maya. Her dark hair had grayed at the temples. Her skin had taken on a waxy, translucent quality. Her eyes, when they occasionally focused, seemed to hold something behind them, something old and patient and hungry. At 11:47 p.m., a nurse entered Maya's room to check her vitals. The restraints were undone. Maya stood at the window, her back to the door, her spine curved at an angle that made the nurse's stomach drop. "Ma'am," the nurse whispered. Maya's head turned. Not her body, just her head, rotating on her neck with a soft, wet crack. Her lips stretched into a smile too wide for her face. "We're going home," she said. "Dr. Baker is waiting. He saved my life. Now I have to save yours, the nurse ran. She resigned the next morning. She told her supervisor only one thing before she left. The woman in that room wasn't a patient. She was a door. By midnight, Maya was gone. The window was open. The parking lot was empty. But the security cameras at the Crescent Hotel, the ones that had been glitching since October 19th, recorded something at 12:03 a.m. A woman in a hospital gown, walking through the front doors, ascending the grand staircase, pausing at room 218, and then, in a voice that was not hers, speaking a single word into the darkness, "Home." Daniel received the call at 12:15 a.m. "It's Maya. She's at the hotel. The voice broke. It was Earl, the night security guard, who had worked the Crescent for 31 years and had never once gone into the basement. "She's in the sub-basement. She's singing. And she's not alone." Daniel drove 80 miles from Little Rock to Eureka Springs in 52 minutes. He did not remember the drive. He remembered only the hotel rising against the night sky like a tombstone, its windows dark except for one, a single light burning below ground level. The front doors were unlocked. The lobby was empty. The singing drifted up from below, soft, rhythmic, inverted. It was Maya's voice. But it was not Maya's song. Daniel descended the stairs. The basement corridor stretched before him, lit by a single bare bulb that swung gently, though there was no breeze. The walls were damp, streaked with something dark that could have been old blood. The floor was concrete, cracked and stained. And at the end of the corridor, standing in a doorway that should not have existed, was Maya. She wore a white nurse's uniform from the 1930s. Her hair was white. Her skin was gray. Her eyes were open, but they did not see him. "He's waiting," she said. Her voice was hollow, echoing as if it came from somewhere far below. "He's been waiting so long for someone who would come back." Daniel reached for her. She did not move. "Norman Baker did not cure cancer," she said. "He fed it. He fed it to the nurses. He fed it to the patients. And when they died, he collected what was left. He put it in the walls, in the floors, in the water that flows beneath this hill. He built a machine that never stopped running. The light flickered. And for one moment, one terrible, endless moment, Daniel saw what stood behind Maya in the doorway. A surgical table, rusted restraints, instruments laid out in perfect rows. And standing over the table, a figure in a doctor's coat, its face smooth and featureless, its hands long and thin and wrong. It turned toward him. It had no eyes, but it saw him. "Come," it said. "You can be the next nurse." Daniel ran. He did not remember running. He remembered only the stairs, endless, climbing, his lungs burning, his legs screaming. The singing grew louder behind him, not following but surrounding, as if the walls themselves were humming. He heard surgical instruments clattering to the floor. He heard the wet shuffle of bare feet on concrete. And he heard a voice, Maya's voice but not Maya, whispering his name with terrible tenderness. "Daniel, come back. Come back to us. We've been so empty without you." The stairs multiplied beneath his feet. The darkness had no direction. The singing had no source. It was simply there, everywhere, inside the walls, inside the air, inside the spaces between his thoughts. He burst through the basement door and slammed it shut. The lock clicked. The singing stopped. He stood in the empty lobby, gasping, his hands shaking, his mind unable to process what he had seen. And then he heard it. A voice. Soft. Familiar. Coming from behind the front desk. "Daniel," he turned. Maya was sitting in the lobby chair. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her eyes were open, fixed on the ceiling. Her lips moved silently, forming the same words over and over. "Stay with us. Stay with us. Stay with us." Daniel did not stay. He walked out of the Crescent Hotel and did not look back. He drove to the nearest church and sat in the parking lot until sunrise, praying to a God he had not spoken to in years. The archive does not explain. It only records. It recorded Maya Whitmore's disappearance on October 20th. It recorded Daniel Carver fleeing the hotel at 3:12 a.m., his face pale, his hands bleeding from where he had clawed at the basement door. It recorded the voice, feminine, clinical, patient, whispering in the empty lobby after he left, "He'll come back." They always come back. The ones who love always come back, and it recorded something else. Something in the sub-basement. A sound the microphones could not categorize. A wet, rhythmic, mechanical sound, like a heart beating in water, like a machine that had been running for 100 years and had finally found what it was looking for. The Crescent Hotel is still there. The basement door is still locked. The third floor still records motion at 3:47 a.m. The tour guides still tell the story of Norman Baker and his cancer cure. But they do not mention the nurses. They do not mention the inverted lullaby. They do not mention the doorway in the sub-basement that should not exist. The archive does. And the archive is not finished recording. This is case file number 115. The Crescent Hotel, Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Good night. If you have lost someone to a place that should have been empty, if a loved one returned from the dark changed, if you have heard a lullaby sung backward from a direction where no one was standing, send your account to contact.thedreadcodex@gmail.com. Your truth enters the archive. Your warning becomes part of the record. Until next time, may your roads stay lit at the right hours. May the people you love return from the dark unchanged. And if you ever find yourself in Eureka Springs after midnight, and you hear singing rising from beneath the limestone, do not follow it. Do not descend. Do not press your palm against the locked door and wait for the click. The Crescent Hotel remembers. The basement remembers. The doorway in the sub-basement is still open. And the machine that Norman Baker built, the machine that never stopped running, is still listening for the sound of someone coming home. Sweet dreams.